What's up everybody, it's Drew Wilkins with Swine Bovine Barbecue, and in this video I'm going to show you how to make one of my absolute favorite things to eat, chicken and sausage gumbo. Let's get going. One of the keys to making a good chicken and sausage gumbo is having good chicken stock. So I'm going to show you how I make my chicken stock. It's going to be a little different this time. I'm using some fresh chicken instead of just chicken bones. I always forget to save chicken bones, so whatever. So we're going to start off with our mirepoix, which is carrots, celery, and onion. Just gonna cut these into chunks. It's a chicken stock, nothing fancy. Pick up the carrot, it's going in some boiling water, doesn't matter. Then just quarter the onions. Leaving the root on, that way they don't get all wild, every peel in the stock. For the chicken component of our chicken stock, we're gonna go in with some thigh bones. It's the thighs we're using for the actual gumbo. I just bought bone-in, skin-on thighs and deboned them. And we're also gonna use bone-on chicken breasts. As mentioned earlier, I'd love for this to just be a bone broth, but I don't have enough chicken bones. We'll take this chicken breast meat and turn it into chicken salad. So once it's fully cooked, we'll pull it out, debone the chicken breasts, put the bones back in, and let the stock continue to simmer for a while. Now we'll go in with our mirepoix, a couple of bay leaves, and some dried thyme. I didn't pick up fresh thyme at the grocery store, so we're just gonna go dried, strain it out at the end. And lastly, some peppercorns. Now we're gonna cover it up about 2 inches above the chicken and mirepoix with cold water. Everything's ready to go now. We're gonna bring this up to a real light simmer, let it go for 3 to 4 hours. Once the chicken breasts are fully cooked, I'll remove those from the pot, put the bones back in, let it continue to simmer till it's nice and reduced. While our stock is finishing up, we're gonna go ahead and prepare the Holy Trinity, which if you're not familiar, that is the mirepoix for Cajun cooking. So it's onion, bell pepper, and celery. And a good rule of thumb is 2 parts onion to 1 part bell pepper and 1 part celery. I'm gonna go for 2 cups of onion, 1 cup of bell pepper, and then 1 cup of celery. We also have a couple of links from last week's andouille video. So this is one of the primary reasons I made it, to go in gumbo, to go in crawfish boils. So we're gonna go ahead and slice this up. I don't go at a bias when I slice my sausage for gumbo. I like it to be bite-sized pieces that you can easily eat on a spoon. Roughly that big around. And just like that, our stock is done. This is the level I've had it at the whole time. It's not a rolling boil or a rolling simmer, just barely some bubbles popping up, enough heat to where it's evaporating some of the liquid, but not boiling. It's lower than it actually looks because I had the chicken breasts in there and I pulled those out. Obviously they were displacing some water, but this one is right where we want it. It's good to go, so we're gonna strain all this off. Then we'll use it in the gumbo. Our stock is done, the vegetables are chopped, so it's time to cook the gumbo. I'm gonna start things off by browning up this andouille sausage that I made last week. If you wanna see how I made it, I'll link it right now and you can click and check out that video. We're just gonna put this in and brown it. Sausage is nicely browned, so we're gonna get it out. So now it's time to make the roux, and a lot of people always ask me, how long should I go to make a roux? That's about how long I go. Roughly a 3 beer roux. Now, that's not a definite for everybody, but I like a nice dark roux, so my guess is, you know, maybe have a little bit of head start on this one. This one will be gone, we'll be somewhere on this one by the time I'm done with this roux. Gonna start our roux off by going in with a cup of vegetable oil. Now let's add our flour. Just gonna go in with 1 cup of flour, so equal parts oil and flour. And now the fun starts. Sit here and stir for probably the next 30-45 minutes. It'll be a nice light blonde color to start. And you'll notice as we go throughout this process, it'll slowly get darker. One tip I have is don't get discouraged when you're making a roux if you're not getting the color that you want. It will come. Don't burn it. Don't crank up the heat way too high. You'll end up doing yourself more harm in the long run, and it's just not worth it. Coming from someone who's done that before, burned a roux. We're just gonna go about this nice and slow, start drinking our beer, and we'll be back with a midway update. 30 minutes in, our roux is getting darker. This is where you can have the temptation to crank up the heat, but don't do that. It'll get to where you want it to, you'll just risk burning it. So we're gonna keep going till it gets the color we want. Our roux is exactly where we want it now. It took an hour and 10 minutes. Sometimes they go quicker, sometimes they take a little longer. Now we're gonna go ahead and add in our Holy Trinity. This is one of my favorite smells out of the whole process. So we're just gonna stir this for around 3 to 5 minutes. After 5 minutes of our veggies being in there, we're gonna go in with our sausage. Then some cayenne pepper. Some bay leaves. Should be about 3 bay leaves, but we're kind of at the bottom of the jar there, so they were a little mangled. And then about that much kosher salt. As I always say, if you're using sea salt, don't use nearly that much. This is Diamond Crystal Kosher salt. It's got a pretty big margin for error, and the chicken stock we're about to add does not have any salt in it. So if you're using table salt or sea salt, dial it back by about half that amount. For a beer update, we drank all 3. I didn't anticipate it going an hour and 10 minutes, so it's probably about a 3.5 beer roux had I been able to run to the refrigerator and get another one, but I wasn't going to risk burning the roux to do that. Now we're going to go in with our beautiful chicken stock. Just look at the color of this. You're not going to get that from a store-bought stock. It'll look a little weird consistency-wise as the stock comes up to the temperature of the roux and sausage. It will combine, but it's gonna look weird for a little bit. Don't worry about it. Our gumbo has come up to a simmer, so we're gonna reduce it, just let it lightly simmer. Not quite as low as we did our chicken stock, but still a light simmer for about an hour or so. In the meantime, let's get some flavor on our chicken. These are the chicken thighs I mentioned deboning earlier, that way we could use the bones in our chicken stock. But now it's time to grill them off briefly. We're not gonna fully cook them, but we're gonna grill them off, get a little sear on them, to then chop them up, dice them up into small little cubes and put them in our gumbo. I love Holy Voodoo from Meat Church. I think it's a fantastic seasoning. I use it all the time on a lot of different things, and I definitely use it when it comes to this gumbo and searing off this chicken. So we're gonna season this pretty liberally with some Holy Voodoo on all sides, and then we're gonna take it outside, grill it up, then we'll come back in and put it in the gumbo. To grill this chicken off, I am cooking a brisket right now, actually for Super Bowl. So I put a grill grate in the firebox. That way I'm not having to start a new fire on my grill. We're gonna put the thighs directly on the grate in the firebox of the offset smoker. Got some nice flavor and color on our chicken from searing it in the firebox. Now we're gonna dice it up and add it to our gumbo. We're gonna let this simmer away for the next hour and a half to 2 hours. And the same amount of salt I added earlier originally, I've added 3 more handfuls of that. And again, if you're using table salt or sea salt, use less. But we want to make sure that it's seasoned, and the best way to know if it's seasoned is to taste. So I didn't add all 3 of those handfuls at once. I put one in, let it simmer for a bit and taste it. It wasn't where I wanted it to be, so I added another one, repeated the process, and did the same thing. So your tongue is your best guide on spice for the cayenne and flavor for the salt. So just continue to season throughout. The chicken we just put in has some seasoning on it as well, so I'll taste it again. But we're just gonna let her simmer. After an hour and 45 minutes of simmering, our gumbo is done. So let's dig in. Gonna let this cool down for a sec, fish the bay leaves out. It looks great, and the best thing about this, a rack of ribs or a brisket, you can't taste it as you go. This you can taste it as you go, and I know what it tastes like. I haven't tried the sausage or the chicken in it yet, but we're in for a treat. Pretty simple to put a gumbo together. We're gonna go in with a couple ladles of our gumbo here. Gonna go in with a big old scoop of potato salad, and then gonna top it off with some green onions. It was a process. We started in the morning with some homemade stock, made gumbo throughout the day, let it simmer, but now we have an absolutely delicious bowl of it. So cheers. Get some potato salad, some chicken. It's unreal. It's the more I make this gumbo, the further I take the roux, the better it gets. I mean, the homemade chicken stock also takes it to another level, so don't sleep on that. This version of this gumbo is different than the other one. It took it to the next level, and I think it's the homemade stock, because typically we decide we want gumbo day of, don't have chicken bones like I did today, which is why I improvised with the breasts and then cut the bones out of the thighs. So we use cartons of broth, which we get good broth. We don't just get crummy broth. We don't buy the great value. We buy bone broth. But going the extra mile to use the broth, I think makes the difference here, because this gumbo is, not to toot my own horn or sound pompous, it's always really, really good, but it's got an extra depth of flavor this time. And the only thing I did different from what I traditionally do is I made my own stock. The andouille is really, really good in it. One of the best things about this gumbo as well is put it in the fridge, seal it up, reheat it the next day, and it's gonna be even better. It's one of those things that overnight, if you're having a party on a Saturday, make it on a Friday, serve it on a Saturday, and it's gonna be even better than it was on a Friday. And from a potato salad perspective, this is just your classic store-bought potato salad. I thought about making my own, but every time I've used it, I've just gotten like the Signature Select potato salad from Albertsons here in Dallas. And it hits every note I want it to hit. So I don't want to make my own when the store-bought does a fantastic job. Maybe I'll try it someday, and it'll probably be similar to the chicken stock where it can take it to the next level. But for now, making two things from scratch is enough. We'll get the potato salad from the store. But thanks for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos like this, please hit the subscribe button. And if you make anything, whether it be the gumbo, the andouille from last week, or any of the other videos I have, please tag me on Instagram and let me know what you thought. My handle is @SwineandBovineBBQ. So thanks again. We'll catch you in the next one.